Hello and welcome to another My Aspie marriage video, and this time I'm going to be talking about gardening, although I will interject at this stage and just explain the reason I'm talking about all of the different parts of the marriage, such as the housework, the finance, parenting, gardening, is because I want to give you an idea of the type of conflict we faced brought about by his Asperger's condition. It was one of those things where we argued almost about everything, or even if we weren't arguing, we had conflict and disagreement about almost everything. And so I just wanted to sort of point that out there, that that's why I'm doing it in these stages, just so that you can sort of, maybe relate to some things and not others. That maybe finances are a key thing for you and gardening is irrelevant. Then again, there's others out there who are also avid gardeners like myself, having conflicts with their autistic husbands or wives as well. So that's just the disclaimer there. So it begins with when I moved in with him. And remember, I was there for 3 years. I was really depressed, really bored, really lonely. And he had no garden. It was just grass and the odd tree, one or two maybe. And he had this nice little sort of alcove area. And I'd said to him, do you mind if I do that up? As at the moment it was just a tree in the middle surrounded by relatively dead, dying grass. And he was absolutely adamant. The answer was no. And I'd drawn up a nice little diagram of the things that I was going to do and everything like this, and it was just a little section, so it wouldn't have ruined his garden had it not turned out well, which I'm assuming was what he was worried about when he said no. Anyway, so no from him, just never happened. It would have given me something to do, it would have given me something to be proud of, but nonetheless. Then, as you know, we've moved back into my place, and as soon as I'm there, I'm doing it up. And I said to him, I'm going to start landscaping my garden. And for reasons unfathomable to me, he is annoyed and agitated by that and doesn't want me to do it. He's just straight up going, no, not going to happen. And I was like, it's my house. You can't be serious that you're just going to tell me, no, I cannot do it. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Anyway, it was my house. I had a job. I just started doing it anyway. So I started purchasing rocks and sleepers and calling my dad up for advice on how to make retaining walls, and the yard was this really massive slope, and I turned it into one flat tier, up another tier, and then up another tier, which meant that I had to put retaining walls and then backfill those walls so that area would be flat. And so I'm happily, merrily going about my business, dragging these sleepers up from the front of the yard where they were delivered up to the back of the yard. And I don't know if you've ever dragged a sleeper, but they weigh probably as much as a person. And it was like dragging dead bodies up the back of the yard for all of the help and assistance that sleeper was giving me with that movement. So I'm there heaving these beasts up this hill and putting them in place and screwing them in and all this magnificent work. I mean, I was really, really loving it, enjoying it. And he was grumbling the whole time. Anytime there was a delivery of rocks or more sleepers or whatever, he was just agitated. So I don't understand that. And even years later I asked him, when the garden was finished, I said to him, why were you so opposed to it? And he couldn't tell me. He didn't have an explanation. And I don't know if it's because he just hasn't that inability to put things into words. Well, what I mean is, I don't know if it was because of his inability to put it into words, because he does have that inability, or if he himself just had no idea and was wanting to be controlling and positional. Who knows? Who knows? When it was done, he liked the garden. He thought it was really well done. We had this entertaining area, and then this other section where it was grass, and then the level right at the back was trees and a swing chair, and that was where the dog hung out and things like this. So it was pretty cool. It was really impressive, I thought anyway. And look, he liked it in the end, but he was just so against it. Really strange, unfathomable. And then of course we moved into the new place, the bigger house, which had no garden. It had yet to be established. And we had made an agreement that because we don't agree on anything, story of my life, isn't there a song called The Story of My Life? Anyway, because we don't agree on anything, I'd made a deal with him that he got to choose 90% of the inside colours of the house, and I got 10%, which was our ensuite. And the reverse of that was I got to do 90% of the garden and he got 10% of the garden, a little section that was his. And he agreed to that. And so I start doing the garden. And of course, everything's an argument. It was always, I don't want you doing this, and no, you can't do that, and yada yada, blah blah blah, da 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 da. And I was just thinking, Jesus, please stop. Stop. Just, ay, 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 ay. I'll give you an example. When we first moved in and the front yard was barren, and I'd got a rotary hoe and dug up all of the grass and weeded it, and then waited for a few weeks to see if any more weeds came back, then weeded it some more, until there was no grass left. It was just all dirt, and then we put, topsoil on and, really good dirt and all that sort of stuff on top. And we were then going to lay some, weed mat across the garden. And he volunteers. He says, all right, I'll lay the weed mat. No problem. So he's out the front, laying this weed mat, or at least he's out the front with the weed mat. And I'm inside. And he comes inside and he says to me, where are the rocks going to go? Because on top of the weed mat, there'll be rocks. And I said to him, I don't know yet. I was going to just put the weed mat down and then have a feel for where I think the rocks will go. Well, this answer doesn't satisfy him. He then starts losing his temper, getting heated about it, getting positional about it, demanding I tell him where the rocks are going to go. And I'm still trying to explain to him, I don't know yet. All I know is that there's going to be a garden there, and a path down the middle. I can't give you more than that. Anyway, this turns into a hoo-ha. He's following me around the house, getting agitated with me, and I'm trying to move away because I can't give you the answer you want. I'm completely confused as to why it is that you're asking. I'm completely confused as to why you're so angry that I won't give you the actual answer, even though I don't have the answer. And so I'm trying to move away from him and get him to leave me alone, and he won't. And it was at this stage in our relationship that I realized that leaving the house and going outside made him stop, because that's exactly what I did. He was verbally attacking me. Why won't you tell me where the rocks go? I just want to know where the rocks go, blah, 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 blah. Getting angry. And I just stepped outside the front door. And it was almost like a vampire who can't go out in the sunlight. He stopped at the front door and he looked around to see if any neighbours were watching. And I had this kind of realization that he won't talk to me like that if other people can see and hear him. So he stops dead in his tracks and the argument is done. Eventually he just comes outside and he puts the plastic mat down, we peg it all down, and then together he and I figure out where the rocks go. And to this day, I will never know why he was so agitated about where the rocks were going. It's just mind-boggling to me. So that's just one example of the types of disagreements that we were having with regards to the garden. And if you are on the spectrum and you know the answer to that question of why it mattered where the rocks were going even though I didn't know, or even if you don't understand the whole process of it but you can understand his agitation, feel free to comment below so that I can have some understanding as to what was going on for him. So then we move on to the backyard, and we had less dramas about the backyard because and this is what I do. If you're an NT partner, maybe you can relate. But what I do is I tend to sort of say to him, yes, I like that suggestion, yes, that's a great idea, yes, da 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 da, just to stop the arguments that I know are going to come if I dare say I would like it done a different way. So I'm saying to him, yes, path down the middle and path down the middle, great idea, yes, get those stones, whatever colour stones you want, you know, and I'm just trying to placate and keep it as peaceful as it possibly can. Fast forward years later, the garden is now a jungle. That's how I like my gardens. When you go into the rainforests, they've got the big trees and the shrubs and the things on the ground and they're mulching themselves, and then you never need to water it. Mother Nature is doing it all for you. That's how I like my garden. The big trees protecting the little trees and all of the leaves and things falling onto the garden, and it's mulching itself, and I never have to do anything except for the odd trimming back here or something. He likes a more sort of contemporary garden, you know, the hedges and the edges and the straight lines and the topiary and, you know, that kind of thing. So obviously we're different in that regard, and I knew that. That's why I said, can I have 90%, you have your little 10%. And to this day, he grumbles and grumbles and grumbles about the garden. He can't just let me have it, you know. It's got to be a thing where I can't walk down here because that's in the way, and when are you going to prune this, and blah, 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 blah. And I'll say to him, you can't prune in these seasons. There are special seasons you have to prune. If you prune now, the plant will grow back even wilder. You want to prune when you're going to stump the plant's growth. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, I might as well just be talking to myself for all that he's listening, because the next year he'll just grumble about that tree needing to be pruned again. And the next year, and the next year, and the next year, and the next year. It's Groundhog Day all over again. So that's how the garden situation is going now. It's still a sort of work in progress. He's still agitated by it, although he's starting to come round. And this may be because we've had a few visitors over and they've admired the garden. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe he's afraid that the garden is going to be terrible and embarrassing. Maybe he's worried that his mates are going to come over and see this crappy garden that his wife's made, which is somehow going to make him look bad because he let me do it. And then he's going to be embarrassed and have to explain to these friends that, you know, he has all these regrets about letting his wife do the garden. I'm not sure. I know that he's ruled by fear a lot, so perhaps that fits in there. On a little side note, it's really funny that the little 10% that I gave him, he didn't do that until a couple of years ago. It took him ages to even do his little 10%. And that's because in the scheme of things, he doesn't even like gardening. He's not a gardener at all. He doesn't go outside. He's more of an inside guy. Of course, that's where the telly is. That's where the sport is. It's not outside. So it's really silly in the scheme of things that I love gardening. Absolutely love it. Avid gardener. Take after my dad. He's a veritable green thumb. I'm the same. And I still have these dumb wars. There's some head-butting about what I do with the garden that I love. So yeah, pure madness, really. He doesn't like gardening, I love it. He still grumbles about everything that I do. And that's the point that I'm getting at, is that with the housework and the finance and the gardening and the parenting, it's almost like he doesn't want me to be good at it, or he doesn't want me to know that I'm good at it, or he doesn't want me to feel good about myself for being good at it, or he straight up really thinks that I'm just not good at it. I don't know, like A, B, C or D. Help me out here. Help me choose one. What is it you suppose that he's thinking here? Because I can't figure it out. It really is almost like everything I do in his mind is going to turn to crap. And that's just what he thinks. And I think that's why he argues about everything. I know that he wants 100% control. He has admitted that to me. As I said, he's ruled by fear. He feels like for as long as he's not the one doing it, he's not the one in control, disaster could happen. So I definitely know that's a thing. And I guess somewhere in there is just this lack of doubt about how okay I'm going to be at anything. It's a really interesting one. If you are a gardener yourself, feel free to leave a comment below with regards to how it is going for you. Are you having the same kinds of clashes with your Aspie partner? Or are you with somebody who wants 100% total control? Or are you on the spectrum and you want that 100% total control? And no matter what, you find it really hard to let that go, because if you don't have that 100% control, the world is going to end tomorrow. I don't know if that's really how it's feeling. I'm not on the spectrum. I can't explain that fear. I know that it must be exhausting to be my husband living with that fear, that constant worry and stress and anxiety and paranoia about all of the catastrophes that could happen if he just gives a little bit of control away. So yeah, let me know if you're on the spectrum. Does this resonate for you? Can you relate? Either way, leave a comment below, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video.